My name's Rachel Lewis. I'm 34, a full-time marketing director. I wasn't supposed to be home that day. I was scheduled to finish a hair campaign shoot in LA, wrap by 6, and fly back on Friday. But something in my chest just wouldn't sit still. I couldn't shake it. You know that mom gut feeling? The kind that nags at you even when everything looks fine on paper? So I booked an early flight, didn't tell Anyoni, not even my husband. I just wanted to surprise my daughter, Ava. It was a cloudy Tuesday afternoon when I pulled into the driveway. Donald and Marion's car wasn't there, which was strange, considering they were supposed to be watching Ava while I was out of town. But I figured maybe the grocery store? A quick run? I wasn't panicked, not yet. I walked in, rolling my carry-on behind me. The house was quiet. Not peaceful, quiet, empty quiet. Ava? I called out. No response. I dropped my bag by the couch and listened. That's when I heard it, this low, repetitive swish, 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 like someone scrubbing. I followed the sound into the kitchen, and I froze. There, on the cold tile floor, was my 7-year-old daughter, kneeling, bleeding. She didn't see me at first. She was too focused, too determined. A yellow sponge in one hand, a bucket of soapy water beside her, her tiny knees pressing into the ceramicone of them, scraped raw, bleeding into the grout. I dropped to my knees. Ava, baby, what are you? She jumped, startled, then looked up at me with this broken kind of surprise, like she wasn't supposed to be seen like that. Like she was embarrassed. I'm sorry, Mommy, she whispered. I didn't mean to spill the juice, Grandma said. I had to scrub it up until it shines, or else I wouldn't get dinner. My heart cracked into something I couldn't piece back together. I looked down at the floor she'd been cleaning. It was already spotless. And, she said, real granddaughters don't make messes. Real granddaughters. Those 2 words made my blood run cold. You see, Ava isn't biologically mine. I adopted her when she was just a baby after my sister and her husband were killed in a car crash. It's never mattered, not to me, not to Jordan, my husband. To us, she's our daughter. Entirely. No asterisk, no footnote. But to Marion, apparently, there's a difference. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just held Ava, right there on the wet tile floor, blood and all, because in that moment, something shifted in me. I wasn't going to be the polite daughter-in-law anymore. I wasn't going to brush things off as they come from a different time. I wasn't going to stay silent for the sake of family peace. They crossed a line. And the worst part? This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a one-off. As I bandaged Ava's knee and tucked her into the couch with her stuffed sloth and a warm blanket, she started telling me everything. Slowly, hesitantly, like she was still scared she'd get someone in trouble. And what she told me next, what she remembered from just the last 2 days, that's when I realized. They didn't just fail to love her. They deliberately made her feel unwanted. And that, my friend, is when the revenge part of this story truly began. Because if no one else was going to protect my daughter, I damn sure would. But to understand how deep this betrayal runs, let me take you back to the day I became Ava's mother, back to the beginning. I was 29 when I became a mother overnight. It wasn't planned. It wasn't something I had on a vision board or in some perfect timeline. But life doesn't care about your spreadsheets or 5-year goals. It crashes into you when you least expect it. My sister Lauren was my best friend. Loud, chaotic, the kind of person who'd show up uninvited and somehow leave your fridge emptier and your soul fuller. She and her husband died in a car accident on their way home from a weekend getaway. And just like that, her baby 7-month-old Ava had no one. I remember sitting in that hospital waiting room, still in shock, while the social worker looked me dead in the eye and asked, "Do you want to take her in or should we start temporary placement?" My heart didn't even wait for my brain to catch up. I just said, "She's family. She's coming home with me." And that was it. I had no crib, no baby formula, no clue what I was doing. But I had love. And I had the one thing Ava needed more than anything, someone who chose her. The early months were brutal. Sleepless nights, panic attacks, blowouts I wasn't emotionally or hygienically prepared for. But slowly, we found a rhythm. And by her first birthday, she'd started calling me Mama, not because anyone told her to, just because. And from that moment on, there was no going back. Fast forward 3 years, I met Jordan. At a friend's birthday, BBQ of all places. He was the guy who didn't try too hard, but still managed to win everyone over. He saw me balancing a toddler, a paper plate of baked beans, and a juice box, and instead of walking away, he offered me a wet wipe and a place to sit. That's the kind of man he is. He didn't just fall in love with me, fell in love with Ava too. From day one, he got on the floor to play with her, read her bedtime stories using goofy voices, and memorized her favorite snacks like it was some kind of test he was desperate to ace. There was never a moment of hesitation in him, never a single breath where he treated her as anything less than his own. On our wedding day, Jordan didn't just propose to me. He gave Ava a tiny silver necklace shaped like a heart and asked, "Would you let me be your dad forever?" And when she nodded and hugged him like he was made of magic, everyone in that room cried. Even Donald, even Marion. After we said our vows, Jordan legally adopted Ava. She became Ava Claire Lewis officially, but truthfully, she'd already been ours long before the paperwork. We were a family, a real one. Built not from DNA, but from choice, and love, and intention. Which is why what happened later, what Marion and Donald did, hurts in a way I can't even explain. Because they were there, they saw the love, they clapped at the adoption party, they brought gifts. They smiled in the family photos, but something in their eyes never quite softened when it came to Ava. At the time, I brushed it off, told myself I was being too sensitive, that maybe it would just take time for them to adjust to having a non-biological granddaughter. But now, looking back, that wasn't adjustment, that was distance, that was calculation. That was the first quiet crack in a mask they never intended to keep on forever. And if I'd paid closer attention then, maybe, just maybe, Ava wouldn't have ended up bleeding on that kitchen floor years later. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because the real unraveling, it started with a birthday party and one lopsided gift. It started small, like most things that rot from the inside do. Ava had just turned 5. And Marion insisted on throwing a little joint birthday brunch for her and Emily, Jordan's brother's daughter. They were born 2 weeks apart, both summer babies, both obsessed with unicorns and glitter. On paper it made sense. 1 party, 2 cakes, easy, right? Except, it wasn't. Because when we walked into Marion's backyard that morning, there was a huge banner that read, "Happy Birthday, Emily," in sparkly pink letters. Beneath it, a 3-tiered cake, shaped like a castle, with Emily's name piped across the top. Ava's name? Nowhere. I pulled Marion aside, thinking maybe it was a mistake. She blinked at me and said, "Oh, we figured they'd share everything, no need to overcomplicate it with 2 separate names." Then she added, "Besides, Ava's still so young, she won't remember." But she did. She always did. From that day on, the differences became patterns. Marion would bring 2 gifts to family gatherings, 1 for each girl, but Emily's was always just a little bigger, a little newer, a little more on trend. She got the American Girl doll. Ava got the knockoff. Emily got front row seats to the Nutcracker. Ava got a book about ballet. Photos? Always both girls together. But the ones posted on Marion's Facebook? Just Emily. Captions like, "Our beautiful legacy," or "Our little star." Ava was in the background if she was visible at all. At Thanksgiving, Emily would be asked about school, about her reading level, her science project. Ava? Crickets. Once she tried to tell Marion about a ribbon she'd won at her art fair. Marion smiled mid-sentence, turned, and said, "Emily, honey, did you finish your turkey drawing?" Ava was 6 then, and she stopped talking at family dinners after that. Jordan noticed. Of course he did. He pulled his parents aside, calmly but directly, and said, "Ava is my daughter, and I need you to treat her the same way you treat Emily." Donald shifted in his seat, arms crossed. "You're reading into things," he said. "We love them both equally. Maybe Ava's just not as social. She doesn't demand attention the same way." "Right, because love is about who's loudest." "The kicker?" Marion once told me while sipping her wine at Christmas, that Ava had such a pretty face, but she doesn't really look like a Lewis, does she? And then she chuckled, like it was some kind of joke we were supposed to share. I laughed too. I hated myself for it. I told myself this was just and generational, that they needed time, that I didn't want to start a family war over a few birthday balloons and Facebook albums. I made excuses. I let things slide. I kept the peace. But Ava? She felt every slight, every silence, every smile that wasn't returned. I remember one night, she climbed into bed with me and asked, "Mommy, do you think Grandma Marion loves me or just pretends?" And that question lodged itself into my throat and never quite left. It's easy to explain away grown-up cruelty, harder when it lands on a 7-year-old's chest like a secret she doesn't know how to carry. And when I said earlier that everything started unraveling at a birthday party, I wasn't kidding. Because the next time we said yes to letting Ava spend a few days alone with Marion and Donald, it wasn't her name they forgot. It was her safety. I should have said no. I knew it the moment I hung up the phone with my agent. Knew it when I saw Ava's face fall as I explained why Mommy had to leave for a few days. Knew it even as I packed my carry-on with dry shampoo and nerves and a dress I never ended up wearing. But I didn't say no. Because the LA conference wasn't just any gidget, was a career-making moment. A seat on a celebrity-style panel. Network dinners with brands I'd pitched for years. And to be honest, I was tired of passing on opportunities because childcare fell apart. Tired of making myself small to keep everything else functioning. Jordan tried to rearrange his schedule. He really did. But his younger brother had just had emergency surgery in Atlanta, and Jordan needed to be there. Our nanny college student, responsible, amazing, was back east visiting family. Plan B? Out sick with the flu. We were out of options. So when Marion offered to keep Ava for the 3 days I'd be gone, I hesitated. She'd been asking for more one-on-one time, said she wanted to bond more with Ava, and part of me, God, I hate admitting this, but part of me hoped this could be a turning point. Maybe if they had some time without Emily around, without the rest of the family dynamic in the way, maybe they'd connect. Jordan was reluctant too. But he said, "It's only 3 days, and they raised 2 kids. I think they can handle ours." So I kissed Ava goodbye at the curb, knelt down and looked her in the eyes. "You be your awesome self, okay? I'll call every night." She nodded, clutching her little bunny, and whispered, "I'll help Grandma Marion a lot so she likes me better." It hit me like a punch I didn't see coming. But I smiled through it, said, "You don't have to earn anyone's love, sweet girl. You already shine." That first night, I FaceTimed them from my hotel room. Ava looked tired, but okay. She told me she helped fold laundry and made her own sandwich. "Grandma says I'm a big girl now," she said, proud. I reminded her she could still just be a kid. Night 2? I didn't get to talk to her. Donald answered and said Ava was finishing dinner and would call me back. She didn't. I tried again later. Marion answered. "She's sleeping already," she said short. She was a little overtired, busy day. I didn't like her tone, but I chalked it up to, whatever, fatigue, generational grumpiness. I didn't know. Jordan texted me, "Still stuck here. Dad's recovery isn't going as planned. Might not be back till Sunday." And then, something shifted in me. Call it instinct. Call it guilt. Call it mother's intuition on overdrive. But the next morning I changed my flight, canceled the last day of panels, skipped the brand brunch. I just needed to see my daughter. The plan was to surprise her. Take her out for frozen yogurt. Show up at Marion's door with a smile and a, "Look who's back early." I thought I'd walk in on a movie day or a board game. Maybe Ava would be curled up on the couch with popcorn and too much sugar. I was so wrong. Because what I found instead, what I walked into when I opened that front door, it still makes my hands shake to remember, and what Ava whispered to me in that kitchen, I will never forget for as long as I live. The front door creaked when I opened it. No laughter, no cartoons, no sign of anyone, just the faint smell of bleach, and something burnt. I called out once, "Ava?" And my voice echoed through the hallway like I didn't belong there. I walked past the dining room, a half-eaten grilled cheese on a paper plate, a glass of orange juice, mostly gone, one pink crock by the table. My heart started pounding. That's when I heard it, that familiar rhythmic sound. A soft scraping, a slosh of water, like someone was cleaning. I followed it into the kitchen, and that's when I saw her. Ava, on her hands and knees, scrubbing the tile floor, one small yellow sponge in hand, a metal bucket next to her, filled with dirty, soapy water. Her bunny Mr. Wiggles tossed to the side, his ears soaked. She was wearing the same clothes from the night before. Her favorite leggings with the stars, and that old frozen tee that was 2 sizes too small now. Her hair was frizzy, her socks were wet, and her knees, Jesus-sure knees, were red and raw, one of them scraped open. I stood there for a second, frozen, trying to understand what I was looking at, trying to convince myself there was a reason. A game, maybe. Anything that wasn't what it obviously was. But Ava didn't notice me at first. She just kept scrubbing, intense, focused, like her little life depended on it. Ava? My voice barely came out. She jumped. The sponge dropped with a splash. She looked up, and when she saw me, her eyes went wide with this strange mix of guilt and hope. And something else I couldn't quite name. "Mommy?" she whispered, like she wasn't sure I was real. I ran to her, dropped to the floor, grabbed her face in my hands. "What happened?" She blinked hard. Then her voice cracked. "I spilled my juice this morning," Grandma said. "Real granddaughters don't leave messes behind." She looked down at her hand, small, pink, pruny, and added, "So I had to clean the floor, the whole floor, before they come back." I stared at her. "Where are they?" I asked. "Disneyland," she said quietly. "They took Emily." "They left you here?" My voice broke, even though I tried to stay calm. Ava nodded. "Grandma said I wasn't grateful enough, that I complained too much, and don't deserve treats like Emily. She said I needed to learn responsibility. And that if I didn't finish before dinner, I couldn't eat. Again." I pulled her into my arms, trying not to shake. Her little body melted into mine, but she was tense. Not like a kid hugging her mom. Like someone just barely holding it together. "How long have you been alone?" I asked. She shrugged against me. "Since after breakfast." I looked at the microwave clock. 3:42 p.m. That's over 6 hours. 6 hours. My 7-year-old daughter had been left alone in a locked house, scrubbing a floor she didn't dirty, for 6 damn hours while her grandparents took their real granddaughter to ride roller coasters and eat churros. "Did they leave you lunch?" I asked. "A peanut butter sandwich. No jelly." She said it was enough. "What about yesterday?" I said. "Were you alone then too?" She hesitated, then nodded. "They went shopping. They told me I whined too much and I'd ruin it for Emily, so I stayed in my room. But I got hungry and came downstairs. Grandma yelled at me for touching the fridge without permission." I had no words, just fire in my chest. Rage I'd never felt before, not even when my sister died. Because this wasn't tragedy. This was choice. Someone chose to make my daughter feel disposable. I carried Ava to the bathroom, washed her hands, her face, dabbed at her knee with Neosporin while she winced and apologized for being clumsy. I wrapped her in her coziest blanket, handed her Mr. Wiggles, gave her a popsicle even though it was 2 hours before dinner. "You're not in trouble," I whispered. "But they are." She blinked. "Are you going to yell at Grandma?" "No," I said. "I'm going to do something worse." "What?" "I'm going to make sure she never gets to hurt you again." I kissed the top of her head, stood up, picked up my phone. First, I called Jordan. Then I called someone else, someone I hadn't spoken to in a while. And then, I waited. Because if they wanted to play favorites, fine. But they forgot who I am. They forgot who they're messing with. And the next time they walked through that door, I wasn't the only one waiting. They came back around 5:30. I heard the garage door, the chime of the security system, the fake laughter loud and exaggerated, like people who know they've stayed out too long and want to pretend nothing's wrong. Marion came in first, holding a plastic bag with a sparkly Disneyland logo and a pair of Mickey ears sticking out the top. Donald followed, carrying Emily on his hip like she was made of gold. None of them saw me at first. I was standing in the entryway, arms crossed, watching. Emily spotted me first. "Auntie Ray!" She grinned, squirming down from Donald's arms. "We saw Mickey Mouse and got churros and... Where's Ava?" Marion cut her off, frowning, her tone more annoyed than curious. I didn't move. "She's resting," I said flatly. "After being left alone for 6 hours and bleeding on your kitchen floor. That stopped everything." Marion's face twisted first surprise, then confusion. Then that tight, clipped frown she does when she's about to start lying. Don't be dramatic. She spilled something. We told her to clean it. It's called responsibility. She's 7, I said. Still calm, still low. She's not your housekeeper. And she's not your lesson plan. Donald stepped forward, hands up like a hostage negotiator. Now hang on, Rachel, you're misunderstanding. She was fine. We weren't gone long. 6 hours, I said, holding up my fingers. 6 hours. No call, no adult. Just a bucket, bleach, and a sandwich so dry, it was still sitting on the plate when I got here. Marion scoffed. Well, maybe if she didn't act so entitled. She threw a tantrum this morning. Over juice. I took a slow step forward. She spilled it, by accident, and then you told her real granddaughters don't make messes. Remember that part? Marion blinked, then rolled her eyes. You're twisting everything. That girl's always been sensitive. She takes everything the wrong way. She's not that girl, I snapped. She's my daughter. She's not a Lewis, Marion muttered. She doesn't look like us. She doesn't act like us. And honestly, we've done enough. That's when I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it confirmed everything. I pulled out my phone and hit the speaker button. Jordan's voice filled the room instantly. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I've heard everything. Silence. Jordan? Marion tried to recover. She's making it sound worse than it was. You know how Rachel gets. Don't, he cut her off. Don't try to gaslight my wife while my daughter sits upstairs with a scraped knee and no dinner. She's overreacting. You abandoned a child, Jordan snapped. Your granddaughter. And I'm done making excuses for it. Marion stiffened. Blood is blood, Jordan. You'll understand when you have your own. I do have my own, he said, deadly quiet. And she's upstairs right now wondering why her grandparents hate her. This is absurd, Donald said. What do you want us to say? Nothing, I replied. Just grab your things and leave. Rachel, you're not welcome here, I said, finally letting the edge into my voice. Not tonight, not until you learn how to love a child without conditions. Marion narrowed her eyes. You'll regret this. No, I said. What I regret is ever trusting you in the first place. As they gathered their things, muttering, blaming, slamming drawers, I walked upstairs and found Ava sitting on the edge of her bed, clutching Mr. Wiggles. She looked up at me. Are they mad at me? I shook my head. No, baby. They're just mad they got caught. She nodded slowly. Am I still in trouble? You were never in trouble, I said. But they are. I sat next to her. From now on, no more being left behind. No more trying to earn love that should have been given freely. Downstairs, the door slammed shut. But upstairs, something opened. Ava leaned her head on my shoulder. Are they coming back? I didn't answer right away, because the truth was I didn't know. But what I did know, what I finally understood with crystal clarity, was that if they did, it would be on my terms. Because the next battle wasn't just about what had already happened. It was about what came next. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls. 6 from Donald, 9 from Marion, 2 from Jordan's Aunt Leslie, who never calls unless someone's died or there's free pie involved. I didn't answer a single one. I poured Ava her favorite cereal, let her wear pajamas past noon, and put on cartoons even though it was a school day. Because that day belonged to her. Jordan flew home that evening, walked through the door, still in wrinkled airport clothes, and went straight to Ava, held her like something sacred. She didn't say a word, just wrapped her arms around his neck and whispered, Daddy, you came back. He looked over at me, eyes glassy, and said, Always. Later that night, after Ava fell asleep in our bed, Bunny tucked under one arm and a smile finally back on her face, Jordan and I sat at the kitchen table. Same tile floor Ava had been scrubbing less than 48 hours before. He rubbed his temples. I can't believe they did this. My parents. I didn't say anything. Just slid my phone across the table. You'll want to listen to the voicemails. He did. And his face? You could see the realization drop in real time. The gaslighting. The excuses. The Rachel's exaggerating again line Marion always loved to throw out. One voicemail actually ended with, This is why we never said anything about her parenting. Look how unstable she gets. I didn't flinch. I'd heard it all before. But Jordan? He finally heard it for himself. And something in him cracked. We're done, he said. They don't come near her again, not unsupervised, not ever. We drafted a message together, clear, legal, and emotionless. No more visits without both of us present, no exceptions, and we told them not to contact Ava directly. All communication would go through us. That's when the real storm started. Because you think cutting someone off is hard? Try cutting off narcissistic grandparents who think they're entitled to access like it's a God-given right. The extended family came in hot. Aunt Leslie said we were tearing the family apart over one misunderstanding. Uncle Mike, who's never babysat a day in his life, said, maybe Ava's just a little dramatic. The group texts exploded. People took sides. People who hadn't sent Ava a birthday card in years suddenly had opinions about her emotional well-being. But we didn't back down. Because for once in my life, I didn't care about keeping the peace. I cared about keeping the promise I made when I adopted Ava that she'd never question if she was wanted again. Then came the surprising part. Jordan's younger brother, Alex, the one who always kept his head down, called Jordan one night. I believe you, he said. Emily told me some things. I didn't want to see it, but I see it now. Turns out, even Emily had noticed. She asked Alex, why did Grandma say Ava had to clean, but I got to play? Kids know. They always do. Alex became our quiet ally. When the others started saying Ava was too sensitive or hard to love, Alex pushed back. Gently. Persistently. Like pulling weeds one at a time from the family garden no one wanted to admit was overgrown with rot. But the fallout wasn't just about relationships. It was about rebuilding. About therapy sessions where Ava asked, will they still love me if I don't clean up perfect? About teaching her that love doesn't come with conditions. About reminding myself that boundaries aren't bridges burning, they're fences keeping poison out. And through it all, Ava began to change. Her shoulders stopped curling inward. She laughed louder. She asked questions without fear of being ignored. She stopped whispering when she wanted to be heard. But just when I thought things were finally settling, just when I thought we had turned a corner, we got invited to a school recital. Both Ava and Emily were performing. And that night, everything came to a head. It was a Thursday night. Cold enough for coats, but warm enough that the kids still ran around the elementary school parking lot like sugar-fueled hurricanes. Jordan and I held Ava's hands as we walked in. Her little sequin dress sparkled under the gym lights, and she kept fidgeting with the hem like she wasn't sure she deserved to shine that bright. You ready, superstar? I asked. She bit her lip, nodded. I think so. I just don't want to mess up the words. Even if you do, I whispered, you'll still be the bravest kid in that whole room. That made her smile. A real one. Emily was already backstage and Alex waved at us from the third row. We sat beside him, and for a few minutes it almost felt normal. Until I saw Marion, front row, center seat, wearing red lipstick like armor and holding her phone like she owned the damn place. Donald was next to her, arms crossed like he was doing someone a favor by even showing up. They didn't look at us. But I didn't care. Because that night wasn't about them. It was about Ava. The performance started some off-key recorder solos, a group poem about autumn leaves, and then the I Am poem presentation. Ava was in the last row. When it was her turn, she stepped forward, all 43 inches of bravery in glittery sneakers, and took the mic. I am strong, she said, voice steady. I am curious. I am kind. My throat tightened. I am not what you see. I am what I do. I am what I love. I am enough. And the room went silent. Not out of politeness, out of something deeper. Recognition. Maybe every adult there suddenly remembered what it felt like to be 7 and invisible. She finished, took a small step back, and looked straight ahead. At Marion, who looked away. And I knew right then that Ava had won something bigger than applause. After the show, as parents swarmed the kids with flowers and photos, Marion approached. Her heels clicked against the linoleum like they were angry at the floor. She did well, she said, eyes not quite meeting mine. Very expressive. I didn't respond. Didn't need to. Ava came running up, wrapped her arms around Jordan's waist and said, Did I do okay, Daddy? You did perfect, he said. Not because you said it right, but because you said it true. Marion lingered a moment longer, as if waiting for permission to speak to Ava. But Ava turned her back to her. Not in rudeness, in power. And in that second I saw it. Marion finally realizing she had lost. Not because we'd cut her off, but because Ava no longer needed her love to feel worthy. We left, without saying goodbye. On the ride home, Ava asked if we could get pancakes for dinner. I said heck yes, because if anyone had earned syrup and whipped cream on a Thursday night, it was her. That night, as I tucked her into bed, she looked up at me and said, "Mommy, I don't think I'm broken anymore." "You never were," I whispered, brushing hair from her eyes. "You just needed to remember who you were, before someone tried to make you forget." She smiled, rolled over, fell asleep clutching Mr. Wiggles like the warrior she was. But the story wasn't over yet, because forgiveness, that would take time, and the apology I never expected? Yeah, it came. It happened 3 weeks after the recital. We were at a diner-neutral ground. Ava was coloring a placemat, Jordan was ordering pancakes like it was a personality trait, and I was sipping lukewarm coffee, trying to forget Marion had asked for this meeting. She and Donald walked in late, like always, like the world could wait for their arrival, but something was different this time. Marion looked smaller, not physically, emotionally. Like something in her had deflated. She didn't bring gifts, didn't fake a smile, just sat across from us with both hands folded like she was trying not to shake. "I wanted to say something," she said, eyes on the napkin dispenser. "I was wrong. I didn't speak, neither did Jordan. We let the silence sit there, heavy and honest." Marion glanced at Ava, who was too busy drawing a bunny on roller skates to notice. What we did, it wasn't just a mistake, it was cruel and I can't undo it. Still, I said nothing. I wasn't going to make this easy. She took a breath. I treated Ava like she was less, because she didn't come from our blood, because I was stupid, because I thought I was protecting something that didn't need protecting. And in doing that, I became someone I never thought I'd be. Jordan's jaw clenched. You chose to become that, every time you left her out, every time you used Emily as a measuring stick. Marion nodded, slow. I know, and I'm not asking you to forgive me. I need you to know I see it now, all of it, and I'm sorry. She turned to Ava. Sweetheart, I don't expect you to believe me, but I want to be better. I want to earn your trust, not expect it. Ava looked up, blinked. Okay, she said simply, then went back to coloring. And somehow, that hit harder than any lecture ever could. Donald cleared his throat. We're starting therapy. Together, Marion and I. Figured it was time. That's when I let myself breathe. Just a little. It wasn't a grand moment. No violins, no big hug. Just a crack barely visible but real. The kind of crack light can get through. That night when we got home, Jordan asked me, "Did you believe her?" I thought for a long time before answering. I think she believed herself. For the first time. And that matters. Do you think she can change? I think she wants to. Is that enough? I looked upstairs, where Ava was humming in her room. Safe, whole, still hers. For now, it'll have to be. But even with the apology, even with the therapy, even with the space we gave them to prove themselves, there was still one moment left that undid me completely. One moment that reminded me why I fought so hard. And it came on Ava's 8th birthday. It wasn't fancy, no ponies, no glitter cannons, just 12 kids in our backyard, 2 Costco sheet cakes, and enough bubbles to flood the driveway. Ava wore a crown made of pipe cleaners and insisted on serving everyone lemonade herself. It's my party, but I can still be a good host, she said. I smiled so hard it hurt. Emily came too. Alex dropped her off with a shy wave and a whispered, "She's been talking about Ava all week." The girls hugged like they'd never been apart, and for a while, they disappeared into the chaos of sidewalk, chalk, and water balloons, and Taylor Swift blasting from a Bluetooth speaker. I didn't notice Marion at first. She didn't come through the gate. She stood by the fence, holding a small gift bag, and looking like she didn't know if she was allowed to cross over. Jordan saw her, walked up, and said something I couldn't hear. She nodded once, stepped in slowly like a guest, not a matriarch. She didn't make an announcement, didn't try to take control. She just walked over to Ava, knelt down, and handed her the bag. "Happy birthday," she said. Ava opened it. Inside was a hand-drawn card clearly made by Marion herself with a picture of Ava in the center, wearing a cape. Underneath it said, "You're our hero." I watched Ava's face, waiting for hesitation. But she just smiled. "Thanks, Grandma. Do you want to see my new bike?" And just like that, she pulled her in. Not because she'd forgotten, but because she'd grown strong enough not to carry the weight anymore. That night, after everyone left and the balloons sagged in the corners, I found Ava curled up in bed, cupcake frosting on her cheek, Mr. Wiggles in one arm and a glow stick still lit in the other. "Best birthday ever," she whispered. I sat beside her, brushing back her hair. "You know what made it the best?" I asked. She grinned, eyes half closed. "All my people came. That's when I knew we'd made it through. Not untouched, not unchanged, but unbroken. Because family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who apologizes, who fights for you, and who lets you be exactly who you Reno cleaning required. If you've ever been made to feel like you had to earn your place in your own story, let this be your reminder. You don't. You are the story. And you belong."